We're going to poke around the college football news, see if anything catches our eye outside of East Lansing, and then we're going to talk with Sonny Verma of Locked on Illini. Let's go.
You are Locked on Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked on Spartans is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked on Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked on Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week here on the Locked on Podcast Network. Go ahead and make Locked on Big Ten your second listen after making us your first listen. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below on YouTube how you're just feeling about the world of college football today, because that's what we're going to do in the first segment. We're just going to kind of peruse because, guys, to shoot you straight, I'll be upfront with you. I'm getting a little bored to talk about Michigan State football, and probably, quite frankly, you guys are a little burnt out on me just talking about MSU constantly, so we're going to do something different here. Let's just, bebop around the internet and see what else is out there in the world of college football. So let's open up Twitter here. All right, scroll, and oh, okay, so headline. Okay, we'll start here. Headline, sources. Central Michigan, Jim McElwain makes significant staff changes weeks before opener. Okay, that's from Football Scoop. Okay, we'll keep on reading this. Why not? Central Michigan is barely 4 weeks from its season opening tilt against FCS program Central Connecticut State, a game that marks the onset of Jim McElwain's sixth season at the helm. But the Chippewas are ushering in training camp not without some drama. Okay, interesting. Multiple sources tell Football Scoop that Central Michigan is making significant changes to his coaching staff, notably elevating John Leister from his role as Director of Football Operations into the slot of on-field assistant as quarterbacks coach. Well, that's a little strange, I think. What happened to their other quarterbacks coach? Didn't they just extend him in January? Then again, maybe he's just going back to Michigan to help with their five-man quarterback battle going on. Anyway, let's keep reading. Let's see if we can get some context here. Jake Kostner, who's been serving as CMU's quarterbacks coach, is not expected to remain with the Chips, sources tell Football Scoop. Kostner is a Grand Haven, Michigan native with deep ties in the state after working 4 years under former Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh as a student assistant in the Wolverines football program. Fascinating. CMU officials have yet to fully reveal any official findings or resolutions from the school's probe into the presence of disgraced former Michigan staff member Connor Stalions on the sideline of the Chips game last season against Michigan State. I guess we are going to be talking about Michigan State here in the first segment after all, but that's fascinating. So are they suggesting over there at Football Scoop that there's a connection between Jake Kostner, the now former Central Michigan quarterbacks coach, and Connor Stalions in his appearance on the sideline in the Michigan State opener last year? Well, let's just connect some dots here. Connor Stalions, he's been over at Michigan since 2015. Jake Kostner was there from 2015 to 2018. Wow, they've known each other for 4 seasons, that would suggest. That's interesting. Maybe they never saved each other's phone numbers or just lost contact after that, of course. And for good measure, Jim McElwain, he was there in 2018. So fascinating, because wouldn't Stalions have to know someone to get access onto the sidelines at Michigan State last year? And I know a lot of CMU people, and oddly enough, a lot of Michigan people. They say that, he just kind of parachuted into the stadium. Sparty's security was weak. He just walked in on his own, a total lone wolf activity that he did. Sure, we'll just keep on parading that around. And, well, my goodness, wow, this just came across the timeline too. Tweet from ESPN's Adam Rittenberg. Central Michigan Athletic Director Amy Fullen has released a short statement to ESPN in response to this report. Quote, Central Michigan does not comment on ongoing personnel matters. The NCAA investigation is still ongoing. We will continue to cooperate and look forward to a resolution. Okay, two things right off the top here, Miss Fullen. Sounds like the guy's fired. If you fire the guy, he's no longer part of your personnel, so feel free to comment on this matter whenever works for you, Amy. Second off, I do love this part. We will continue to cooperate and look forward to a resolution. Continue to cooperate, like in the same way that I plan on continuing my triathlon preparation? Like, when have you ever cooperated doing this? You can't continue to do something you haven't done. He was on the East Lansing sideline, 11 months ago. Let's do benefit of the doubt. At the very latest, you've known about this for at least 9 months, and here is how we know that. This is from, Jim McElwain, right after the game they played on Halloween. Quote, "We obviously are aware of a picture floating around with a sign stealer guy. Our people are doing everything they can to get to the bottom of it. I certainly don't condone it in any way, shape, or form." All right, so here's the 9 months since he said that. This is what getting down to the bottom of it looks like over there in Mount Pleasant. So between Halloween and last week, all that they've done is actually they've given Jake Kostner an extension. That's pretty much all they've done. They haven't turned over anyone that even marginally looks like Connor Stalions. There's only 3,000 guys that look just like him in Mount Pleasant. They couldn't make him the scapegoat and give him a season sideline pass in Mount Pleasant as a little reward. No, all they've done was just extend that quarterback's coach that seemingly is tangibly related to the Connor Stalions situation. And maybe this is why we're a little fired up about this, because I've known Jake Kostner's name surrounding this for months. All right? I wasn't even looking around. I wasn't picking and prodding. This just fell on my lap in conversations with people that I know that aren't investigative journalists or detectives. This was pretty easy to find out. And I'm not saying this as a brag of like, oh, I knew something you didn't know. No, I knew something that seemingly Central Michigan didn't know. The school that is going to get down to the bottom of this, that is why I'm fired up. This is insulting to our intelligence. You know, and you didn't care, and you weren't cooperating. How stupid do you think the rest of us are? Oh, we're cooperating. Oh, we'll get down to the bottom of this. Okay, you extended the guy when it was pretty obvious that, hey, he might possibly have ties to Connor Stalions. And there's no apology to MSU, even in private. That was said from the Graham Couch piece about a month ago, that CMU is just looking for this all to blow over. All right. And they won't even comment now on it, that things are finally starting to transpire. Okay, well, sorry, I got a little off base there. Back to the football scoop story. Multiple reports this week indicate that Michigan, which saw its former head coach Jim Harbaugh suspended for 6 games during the 2023 college football playoff championship run, is expected this week to receive its formal notice of allegations from the NCAA. So we'll get to the Michigan thing later, if or when those things drop. I don't really think it's going to be much of a bombshell for Michigan. I think they'll skate away free for the most part because that's how it works in the NCAA. But regardless, I just have one thing to say as it pertains to, Michigan, the fan base over there. I know a few of their fans listen to the show. Of course not. What else would they do with their time? And I still can't believe that there still are people like this out there. But if any one person still actually believes that no one at Michigan knew Stalions was stealing signs, created this whole cheating brigade that he created, but a staffer at CMU knew what he can do and hired him as a freelancer for a nice Friday night in East Lansing, you just quite simply need your brain studied. And to take it even further, you should probably be ineligible to vote in this upcoming election because that's a certain kind of delusion that you guys are on over there. So free advice before we go any further. Stop embarrassing yourself. To the few of you guys that are still doing this, oh, Michigan didn't know thing, stop wasting your energy. Try to convince people that Michigan didn't know because, guys, even people at CMU knew what this guy was all about. Anyway, back to Central Michigan. Let's just tie this all up. Tavita Thompson, already the team's running game coordinator and offensive line coach, is assuming a greater role in the offensive hierarchy, sources told Football Scoop. Well, that's a good person to promote because surely there aren't any screenshots of him out there standing directly next to Stalions on the sideline in East Lansing. And you know what just popped up in my memory? You remember that play? It was a run to the sidelines. Connor Stalions had to put his head down and kind of look at the ground so his face wouldn't show up on TV. Again, I'm kind of getting way off base. What were we talking about? Tavita Thompson. Oh, yeah, that's right. Surely he wasn't standing directly next to Connor during that play either. You can fact check me, too. I know that he's definitely not standing next to Connor Stalions and had no idea who he was. You can go ahead and find that clip yourself on the internet. There's no way you're going to find them standing next to each other. So let's bring this back to MSU. If you're MSU, here's what you can do while you wait for them to stop twiddling their thumbs and waiting for the NCAA investigation to wrap up. You play the chips in 2027 and 2030. Okay, of course, I'm now fully on the side of you have to cancel those matchups, but not just that. you wait until the last possible minute to do so. You wait until like June of 2027 to do this because, hey, you're Michigan State. You can just go shopping for some random FCS school. You can pay whatever fine it's going to be. Just like, you kind of did with Prairie View A&M. You found them on very short notice. Over there in Mount Pleasant, that's Central Michigan. They're not just going to find another Power 4 school that is going to pay for them to come to their campus last minute, most likely. Make them go out and spend their own money, which they're kind of running out of on an FCS program to fill the hole in that schedule. Make this as inconvenient as possible. Drag your feet during the process, kind of like how they've dragged their feet during this whole process. So I get it. Some people might say, well, Matt, they fired the quarterback coach. What else do you want them to do? Well, do it when the rest of us knew back in the winter. Don't extend the guy. Show us that you're taking this somewhat serious. Like, this all just looks like you were waiting for this all to go away or just assume that we would forget. Oh, the whole we're waiting for the NCAA investigation to wrap up. Do it yourself. Do it yourself. Fire the guy yourself. Show that you're serious yourself. Apologize to Michigan State either publicly or behind closed doors yourself. Waiting for the NCAA to do it. No. You can do adult things over there. I promise you. I know you're not a Power 4 school, but you can take initiative. And this pains me to say. Come on. Like, CMU, the rest of the university as a whole, like, fine institution. Like, my mom's a CMU grad. We had Adam Jackson on last year, the voice of CMU sports. Incredibly kind human and guest. I know tons of people that went to CMU, just like you do out there. But you turned your sideline into a circus 9 months ago, and ever since you've been acting like clowns. So now it's time that we treat you like clowns. So, anyway, another piece of news: Michigan State basketball going to host Bowling Green November 16th. Tum Nairn versus Tom Izzo. The winner of that game gets to keep the Michigan State coaching job. All right, we will be joined by Sonny Verma of Locked On Illini. That's going to be an important game here in November. But first, need to talk to people's ears off about the Gametime app. Folks, you already know I love the Gametime app. They're all about saving you money, whether it's their flash deals throughout the week. If you know you're going to go to an event, let's say a theatrical performance, a concert, or of course a sporting event later that week, you're going to save big on the tickets in the section that you know and love, or the last minute ticket deals. Just as you're walking up to the stadium, you can still save cash there. I also love them for how transparent they are. This is not one of the ticketing sites where, oh my goodness, this is great. I just found $11 tickets. And then 57 clicks later, why do these tickets all of a sudden turn into $58 tickets with all the fees? No, it is upfront with Gametime, and they also have your back with their Gametime ticket coverage, covering lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, 24-hour return guarantees, job loss assurance, and on-time ticket deliveries. And they will start saving you that cash right off the bat, because when you download the Gametime app and create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Folks, this weekend, 4 weeks until kickoff, but 16 weeks until a very important game for both of these teams. What's up, everyone? It's Matt Sheen of Locked On Spartans. Over there, Sonny Verma of Locked On Illini. And yes, look, Sonny, just like I was saying off camera, Spartans versus Illini, to the outsider, sure, let's be honest here. That could lack some sex appeal, especially for this year's matchup. I'm not sure if this is going to get a lot of eyeballs from outside, but man, look, both teams will be coming off a bye for this game. Illinois' over-under is 5.5. Michigan State isn't much better. It's 4.5, actually. K-Ford Rankings gives this game a 55% Illinois lean. It might be a nasty one, but hey, from two teams that could use a November win to get into bowl eligibility, safe to say this is important for you guys as much as it is for us here?
You're exactly right. I'd argue even more important on my side, because Bret Bielema is in his fourth year, whereas opposed to you guys with Jonathan Smith being in his first. Bret has a lot to prove this year. Not that the seat is even lukewarm at this point, but year 4, you're a Big Ten school. You're making a lot more money than a lot of the other schools in the country. Sure. 2 of the first 3 years, he wasn't able to make it to the bowl game. 5-7. 8-5, 5-7. This year, getting to 6 is almost mandatory. So, as you said, that Michigan State Illinois game is going to be huge for the Illini.
We're going to start on the defensive side of the ball as I start the grilling session right now. And look, obviously the pass defense fell off after Ryan Walters takes the Purdue job, and then 3 guys are drafted to the NFL. Like, that is a whiz kid coordinator and 3 outstanding players. Of course it was going to drop off, but did it drop off so much that it's now a quote-unquote worry going into this season? Or how are you feeling about that pass defense that made Illinois that great team a few years ago?
Well, I think you nailed it perfectly. That team 2 years ago had arguably the best defense in all of college football.
Yeah.
And in Illinois lost 3 players in that secondary in the top 70 picks in the NFL draft.
Man.
And Illinois is not Georgia. Illinois is not
Right.
Michigan. We can't reload like that. So essentially last year we had a lot of very young, unproven players with a first-time defensive coordinator. Obviously, Ryan Walters goes over to Purdue. So this year, it looked to be like it was going to be another weakness coming in just because we didn't really have any veteran presence. Our 2 starters from last year actually transferred out. But very recently, we just got a commit from our transfer from Terrence Brooks, the Big 12 all Big 12 honorable team, from
Gotcha.
Texas, a fantastic player who I think is going to raise the ceiling or maybe the floor a little bit on the defensive side. And then we got the Scott brothers, who apparently Bret Bielema cannot stop raving about. Okay. So, that's probably going to be the key for the football team. Aaron Henry is now going to be in his 2nd year as a defensive coordinator, and Bret Bielema is, the typical type of coach where he's not putting any blame on Aaron. Aaron was a former player of his, a former assistant coach, so it's someone he feels personally invested in. But, we're kind of in a we'll see mode. That's our offense is going to be carrying our defense this year. So, we'll see.
Yeah. So from one we'll see to possibly another, because Jerzon Newton, he's gone, 2nd round draft pick. I mean, that guy just gobbled up offensive lines. He was outstanding. That was the strength of the defense last year, at least in my opinion. Maybe you can defer on that, the defensive line. But is it still going to be a strength this year, even with Newton gone? Or where is the strength of this defense going to lie for the Illini?
No, definitely the strength this year is going to be the linebacker room, which, arguably might be the strongest room in the entire locker room at this point. We've got 2 potential NFL players in Gabe Yakus and Seth Coleman. Both were selected to be representatives of Illinois at Big Ten Media Day last week, which I was very fortunate to attend. Gabe Yakus is a guy who's had SEC people sniffing around every offseason, trying to offer him a boatload of money. But, Gabe has kind of bought into the program here. And I would say clearly that's going to be the locker room that's going to need to carry its weight, because I already talked about the secondary, perceived weakness. The defensive line has the potential to be okay if they stay healthy. But in college football, you can never count on just staying healthy.
We know about that in these parts in East Lansing here. Injuries are a whole lot of fun in the game of football. I was reading a preview on Illinois this morning, the Pick 6 previews. They do fantastic work, and they pointed out this stat right here, that last year you guys were 112th in sack percentage. I'm switching to the offensive side of the ball for you guys right now. Sorry to throw a fast one on you. And not only that, but you're replacing both starting tackles. The offensive line, is it safe to use the C word there? Is that a concern going into the season? Where are we at with this, Sonny?
Actually, not at all. The reason the reason the numbers were so bad last year is because for the first 5 or 6 games, our offensive line was arguably the worst in all of P4, P5.
Got it.
It was a lot of moving guys around. Luke Altmaier was, our best rusher and our best quarterback. He really did struggle, but eventually we found the right guys. We moved a couple players around to make it become one. I wouldn't say an above average, but at least an average offensive line. But the damage was already done in the first 5 games or so. This year, as you said, we do lose a couple of our starting guys up there, but we replace them with a guy like J.C. Davis, who's probably going to be the highest drafted NFL player or Illini player in next year's NFL draft.
Okay.
The scouting report on him has been fantastic. He's a guy who spurned a lot of other offers from a lot of other big clubs. And Josh Kreutz, if you're a Bears fan, and Bears fans out there know his father, Olin Kreutz, same bloodline, playing center. He's someone who surprised everybody last year. So the offensive line is actually going to be probably one of the better ones in the Big Ten, and one of the reasons I'm so optimistic about our offense.
Okay, because I was going to say, like, there's no way a Bret Bielema coach team can go 2 years in a row with having a bad offensive line in Big Ten play. Like, that would just go against his ethos and everything that he stands for as a human being. So, okay, at least something's going right down there. So the strength, is it going to be the pass game, the run game? What can State fans that are sick like myself start losing sleep over 16 weeks ahead of this game here?
Well, I think it'll be a balance. Luke Altmaier had an on and off first year as a college football quarterback. A lot of people on the national side are a little bit more down on him. I think the perception is that he is who he was in that Penn State game, where everyone saw on national TV him get 4 interceptions in the first half. But in reality, in his last 6 starts, he had 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And essentially, once the offensive line in front of him solidified and we had an emerging running back, who I'm about to talk about in a second, Luke turned into one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. So a lot of the offense is going to be counting on the jump he makes now that he enters his second full season as starter. Our wide receiver room was kind of green. We had 2 really good players last year, Isaiah Williams and Casey Washington, who are now going to be on NFL rosters. This year we have Pat Bryant, who's our number 3 last year, supposed to be our number 1, but we are able to get Zachary Franklin, the former UTSA star. He's actually the most decorated wide receiver coming into this year, at least stats-wise, career stats-wise. So he gets to slide into that number 1 spot, Pat Bryant into the number 2 spot, and one of the more heralded prospects we've had in a while, Malik Elzy, no longer has the pressure of being one of the starters. He's probably going to be our number 3 guy. But as you talked about, Bret Bielema, you think about pounding the ball, handing the ball off, 1,000-yard rushers, and we have 2 or 3 guys in our backfield that are capable of doing that. Last year, unfortunately, for a game or 2, the entire room was injured. So we had to resort to really, just come up with makeshift lineups. But this year, a lot of pressure and a lot of eyes are going to be on Caden Fagan, who basically it was his emergence last year, which kind of turned things around for the Illini to begin with. And sure enough, he got hurt at the end of the year, which ultimately, I'd say, arguably lost us a chance at that bowl game. So he's going to be a sophomore, and he's the guy who I'm eyeing as the next 1,000-yard rusher under the Bret Bielema running back tree.
There we go, the storied running back tree of Bret Bielema. All right, we are going to flip the script here. Sonny is going to grill me about my Spartans. Again, 16 weeks ahead of this matchup. You could almost just feel the energy right now. But first, got to talk to people's ears off about eBay Motors. Sonny, you know this. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. We're talking superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you will always find exactly what you are looking for. And best of all, with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time, or it's your hard-earned money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. Sonny, that line is so nice, I like to say it twice sometimes. You are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home the huge win. So, what are you waiting for out there? Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, let's turn the tables here. Sonny, grill me about my Spartans. We haven't had anything going on this offseason, so surely you have no questions. Or anything, right?
I've got a couple for you, Matt. Quick question. Right. Let's just start right off the bat. Jonathan Smith, a very impressive resume compared to the previous stops that he's had and the results he's been able to accumulate. What were your initial impressions when he was the guy that Michigan State zeroed in on and the next head coach of the Spartans?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I've loved it from the beginning too. That was a guy that, he was at the top of my list, but I didn't think it was actually going to happen because of all the turmoil going on at Oregon State. Part of me thought that, okay, he's going to stick it out with his former team, the school that he's just rebuilt. This is a tumultuous time. Maybe he sticks around there, okay? But then money talks, and the opportunity of being in the Power 4 and not outside of the Power 4 was just too much for him to turn down. So he was at the top of my list, right behind the pipe dream of Urban Meyer. But, once I came out of my fog and realized the reality of the world, I thought, yeah, you know what? This is probably the best guy that we could possibly get because just like you said, Sonny, his track record speaks for everything. He took over an Oregon State team that was, oh God, me, you, and the first 9 listeners of this show, we probably could have beat Oregon State, the team that he took over. And he took a little bit of time, 3 years before they really got the gears turning, but he knows how to rebuild a program. He'll have more resources here than he did in Corvallis. So I loved it just because he has shown the blueprint and he is already talking the talk about physical football, establishing the run, pound green pound, just everything that us State fans want to hear. We're getting back to our blue collar roots, kind of harkening back to the days of Mark D'Antonio. The good years, not the bad years, Mark D'Antonio, but I love the hire just right out of the chute.
So before we talk about some of the actual units on the team, Michigan State, I would argue, is probably one of the teams happier with this new version of the Big Ten now that these divisions are gone and that you're not going to be forced to play some of these powerhouses every single year. I mean, just tell me your thoughts on that whole thing.
Point blank, you've nailed it. Yeah, I'm sick of playing Ohio State every single year, and then we still get Michigan. That's a protected rivalry. Sure, fine, whatever. And then getting Penn State off the books helps too. Now, this year's still going to be a tough schedule. Our October is Ohio State. 6 days later, we play Friday night at Oregon, and then a nice little bye week, and then Iowa, and then Michigan. So still a very tough schedule for Michigan State Spartans, but September is manageable. November, should the team still be alive, is manageable. So that's all to say. I'm just thrilled to get some teams off the books here and start opening up these divisions. Yes, you got to play Oregon every once in a while. Sure, USC is on there, but I'm just so sick of losing. You want a fun stat? It's actually not fun at all. Do you want a fun stat? So,
let's hear it.
The last 4 years against Ohio State, the average score was 37-4 at halftime. No. That's how sick I am of seeing the Buckeyes. So yeah, done with the divisions. I know we see them this year, but I like them like once every 3 years now, not every single year. So yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so we talked about Jonathan Smith being in his first year. The over/under 4.5. From the looks of it, sounds like it's going to be still a pretty difficult schedule. What are the expectations for the Spartans next season?
Yeah, I know it's kind of crazy going like 2 whole games over a Vegas over/under, or even you look at S&P Plus or the K Ford rankings, like they're also in the 4-ish range too. But I'm seeing 6 wins. I'm seeing 7 wins. Yes, I did talk about October. That is a very tough stretch. But September, okay, not too shabby. Florida Atlantic, Prairie View, A&M, and then a road game to Boston College are your non-conference games. You get Maryland on the road too. That's not going to be an easy game. I'm not leaning win there. Let's not get it twisted. But still, it's not a road trip to Happy Valley, for example. And then November, it's Indiana, it's Illinois, it's Purdue, and then it's Rutgers. So should the team be healthy, I know that there was a lot of roster turnover, but we also inherited a lot of great players, whether it's from Oregon State, whether it's from elsewhere. With a competent coaching staff, I feel like 6 wins isn't just gettable, but almost an expectation, with the asterisk of should this team stay healthy, because depth, that's kind of been a concern on my end over here. Me and the listeners are split on the whole depth discussion, but I'll let that be for the future talk. Yeah.
Well, let's make that future talk current talk.
Okay.
I saw that you guys lost on the defensive side 3 of your top players. How do you replace that?
The defensive line was tough because, well, Derek Harmon, Simeon Barrow, they both dip into the transfer portal in the winter, and then would you look at that? They got him back. It was great for another month and a half. And then they went back into the portal and they got another payday elsewhere. So you're replacing 2 really strong defensive linemen. They have good defensive linemen at the starting spot. Maverick Hansen, who has been here since the Mark D'Antonio days. And no, that's not a joke. That is legitimate. He's the only Mark D'Antonio recruit still standing here. And then Daquan Dowse, who's a strong transfer from Georgia Tech. Behind him, though, it's either veteran players that really haven't shown much and have already hit their ceiling elsewhere from the transfer portal, or young guys that are unproven, some coming off injuries. So it's really a grab bag as far as depth goes there behind the starters on the defensive line. Now, the third guy, I believe Jaden Mangum is who you would be referring to. He went to Michigan. That was a safety that, well, obviously went to the rival. That's not fun at all. I will say this. This is the deepest our secondary has been in quite some time. Our safety room, still fine. Malik Spencer, Dylan Tatum, those are 2 solid returners. They got Nikai Martinez. He started every game for UCF last year. And then the cornerbacks, look, we had a really strong true freshman, Chance Rucker, last year. He's back for a sophomore season. They plucked Ed Woods out of Arizona State. He rated as the top 10 cornerback in Pro Football Focus. So I know I'm not going to, kid anyone here. The bar was also on the floor for secondary talent the last few years. Like, it has been not good, but finally we have experience, and they did a really good job in the transfer portal of getting guys to just add depth and starting talent to that room too. So it's like, hey, yeah, it wasn't great to lose those players, but for the secondary, it wasn't as bad as it seems. And for the defensive tackle, it's like, you know what, maybe that was pretty bad.
Well, someone who I think you guys are hoping is not going to be bad, let's switch to the offensive side.
Yeah.
And obviously the spotlight is going to be on Aiden Childs. He's coming with Jonathan Smith. Give us a preview of what to expect with him.
Yeah, my mental health relies on that 18-year-old's hands right there. And that's the thing. He is young. He's a true sophomore, but he is still just 18 years old. He did play in spots last year for Oregon State, so we got a limited window of what he can do. But what you see, you kind of see why that 24/7 Sports at one point had him rated the number 1 transfer quarterback. I think he eventually was the number 2, but nevertheless, solid kid. One of the first things that you see in the highlight film is a 20-yard line to 20-yard line throw. He has live legs. I mean, he just has some zip on the ball. It's everything physically that you want out of a quarterback. And what we like about it, too, it's not your typical transfer quarterback situation where, okay, he's got to learn new coaching staff, new system. He's got to learn new receivers and everything. He's coming over with that coaching staff, that offensive coordinator. They brought over the top tight end pass catcher in the country last year. As far as touchdown catches go, I should have worded that differently. Jack Velling, his teammate over at Oregon State, he's here too. So, yes, he's got to build chemistry with the other receivers and running backs, but he's got a really nice security blanket right off the top there. So, I know that the coach, Jonathan Smith, is saying, let's keep our expectations like somewhat reasonable here. Again, he hasn't started a game yet. He's still 18 years old, but, oh, man. Try watching a minute of the highlight tape and seeing what we had here at quarterback last year and not getting excited for the future here. I'm excited to smile again because, Sonny, we scored 15 points a game last year. Like, even if we're losing this year, at least it'll be exciting. Like, it was just so bad. So bad.
Well, before we wrap up, real quick, Matt, a couple of the other game breakers on offense.
Nate Carter, who you started every game last year at running back, but man, was it hard for him to find the end zone. He went the last 10 games without scoring a touchdown, but the offensive line wasn't like necessarily the greatest. Now, he came from UConn. That year at UConn, he played a short season, just 4 games, but he led the nation in those 4 games in yards after contact. Just look at a picture of him, and you could probably figure out yourself that, like, okay, he probably still has that somewhere in him. I know last season didn't go well. He's getting popped behind the line of scrimmage more times than not, but I like Nate Carter a lot. Montorie Foster, he's the leading receiver. You may or may not already know about him. Just a 6'1" receiver, just a really surefire guy to be a starting receiver for Michigan State. But I do want to throw this out. Nick Marsh, top 150 recruit out of Detroit, 6'4". The word out of camp right now is that Montorie Foster actually said this, that he is, quote, special. So you don't want to throw a lot of expectations on young kids, but we're throwing expectations on young kids. Nick Marsh could also, certainly boost my mental health this upcoming fall. So that's who to keep an eye on.
Sounds good, Matt. Again, at least on the football field, I got no ill feelings towards the Spartans, so I wish you luck in every game except for the one that we face off in.
Yeah, you too. This was fun. Probably different discussion for probably a lot of screaming during basketball season, but this was cordial. Right, exactly. This was nice. I appreciated this. All right, folks. Again, SG and Locked On Spartans over there. Sonny Verma of Locked On Illini. Until next time, hey, take care of yourselves the rest of the week. Love you all. Go green. And what do you guys say over in Illini country? Is it like I-L-I-N-I?
Yeah.
There you go. Nailed it. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. All right, guys.